Hello and welcome to the next Secrets of an Educational Designer episode. This one's focusing on data and the learning aspects associated with that data being collected and how it can be analysed with or through technologies. So a lot of our perspectives do come from the wisdom of others, and Albert Einstein's words here around what we know is really quite fascinating when we think about it in perspective of data and information and how far our industry has come around this concept and using these words in different contexts. So I think with Albert Einstein saying, if you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough, kind of underpins the level of information behind being able to explain it simply. And this, if you don't know it well enough, means you actually need to find out more about it. And I think that's where data and the data trail left behind from a lot of our digital tools is a really fascinating area, and something that we spend a bit of time on as educators and teachers about trying to assess students' different connections to the data that they leave, and that starts in many different areas which we'll cover. I think some of the questions that I get asked regularly around this field is about how you use data to teach and design effectively. And data we can use quite loosely, it doesn't necessarily have to be numbers. It is also used interchangeably with the word information, and what that actually looks like is underpacked in a lot of different areas of education. So if you think about a purpose that you have in mind about why you would collect data and what's it going to measure and why is it going to measure that, you're off on a really great footing for exploring what information is available to you and how it might benefit you. I think then you can turn to your technologies and see what's going to help you not only capture it, but also visualize it and begin to make sense of it. And we're not talking research methods here, we're talking purely analytical for the point of being able to improve what we do and how we do it. But some of the language that's unpacked in the literature is centered around big data, and big data how it makes it very possible to find out more information. And they talk about data mining, etc., when it's connected to student performance and the learning approaches there. So there's a whole area around this field. However, it does imply that the learning is actually being measured through data, and there's usually a lot of it. And a lot of the literature that we start to see when it starts to focus in on education is, as we do digitalize education, our online activities do create a vast digital trove of data. And this is this trail, this footprint that follows people throughout the internet, but also through our internal systems, such as our learning platforms. But of course, this is only part of a really big picture. And I think this is really important when we put it in context for learning. So some of the other language around data is the use of learning analytics. And this is defined by an organisation that it is the measurement, collection and analysis and reporting of data about learners and their contexts for the purpose of understanding and optimising learning and the environments in which it occurs. So this kind of focuses in data and information around the student learning process. But it does, and most importantly, I guess, it does allow us to use the data that's associated with the learners' interactions to make pedagogically informed decisions and evaluations. This is where it takes it to a step of what a teacher would use it for or potentially use it for. So when we start thinking about what these informed decisions are, it really is the result of better learning designs and better ways to document our teaching intent. So one of those strategies is how we communicate data, and we do focus in on data visualization, particularly because of the technologies that support it. So when we start talking about communicating data that is found, we are starting talking about making it, I guess, appropriate for different audiences, and we're making sense of that statistical data or large amounts of information in very visual ways, and there are many, of course, examples on the internet. But I think what we focus in here by looking at potentially the use of infographics, we're starting to use technologies that help generate a visual approach to interpreting that data and making it make sense in a visual way with a little bit of text and a little bit of numbers to help support the visual picture. So some of the technologies are built around this particular field kind of have to be reduced down to more of an analysing approach. And I think collecting this data, you can use different survey tools, and there are a whole range of those on the market. And I think a lot of these survey tools is just one strategy to actually collecting information. But I think how you represent that can be done in many different ways. And I think things like Tag Crowd, which is more of a word cloud tool, there's the range of possibility there. Visualizing just text is really quite fascinating. And of course Canva has built-in infographic tools that help people reduce the graphic burden and make it simple with their templates and their examples through the tool. But there's a whole range of areas here. But really, my second tip is around the availability of data. So you need to find out what is actually available to you, all that you can actively collect. And some of those examples include student enrollment data. We also can collect clicking behaviours in learning platforms and other types of tools. We can also actively collect survey data. And we can also collect student retention data. That's really quite useful strategies. There are also a whole range of scores from entrance tests and language tests and accomplishments that can be used to help paint the big picture of the learning. And of course, there are many, many others. You have to be able to identify what these are and what they are actually trying to represent. And of course, in the third tip is about the big picture and being able to articulate your goals for using the data. So you must have that clear purpose in mind, hopefully before you try and collect it. But if you are using data that's already been collected, there still has to be a purpose. So being able to describe how you'll share it, and this is where the visualizations come in, we start to cross into the field of research. But it doesn't have to be all highly statistical analysis tools. And I guess what we're trying to do in this big picture is explain why the data is going to be useful in future learning designs. How is it going to alter how you teach and hopefully improve student learning? So there are a range of different examples, but just drawing on what the technologies can enable us to do, there are different ways of presenting data, both visually and through virtual rooms. So there is that presentation side and the data that is actually being captured while using such a tool such as Collaborate. You can see attendance rates, you can see different kinds of comments being made. And of course, there's a whole range of word clouds that can help simplify and make keywords stand out. So this is just a very brief overview of what is possible, but it is about getting the big picture here around the use of data and information. So thank you for watching.